This content is brought to you in association with my buddies over at Jam Jam Cards UK. You can find the links to the eBay store and the Facebook page in the description. Hi guys, it's Joe here from Rufioh. Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard. You should definitely hit subscribe and the notification bell before we go any further and you realise how fucking garbage this content is. But if this is not your first time on the channel, welcome back, I suppose I should say. Thank you for coming along again, I guess. Whichever of those two camps you fall into, though, I do genuinely appreciate you being here. So for today's video, we've got some makeshift content, not normally the sort of kind of thing that I do, but I guess being a Yugioh, you have to try and be a little bit flexible with these things. Of course, the format dropped middle of this week and wiped out the viability of literally every piece of content that I had pre-recorded to fill the gaps whilst we waited for a new format. So yeah, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel a little bit, but you're here, so I guess you must enjoy this kind of nonsense, right? So for today's video, we're going to be looking at what the biggest, best buff decks were, the winners of the Forbidden and Limited list for May 2022. Now, there are a total of 7 decks I want to talk about here, just briefly, nothing too in-depth, but just to give you some idea on why you might want to look out for some of these decks. Now, if by chance you're looking to pick up some new Yu-Gi-Oh! Singles, especially with the format changes, consider checking out the channel sponsors, Jam Jam Cards UK. Use code Rufioh15. There is a link down in the description. If you go ahead and use that, you'll get that nice discount on an eBay order. Not only will you be getting your products cheaper, but you'll also be helping out the channel as well, directly by going and buying from them. So the first of the decks I would like to talk about today is Despacito. That's right. Despia, branded Despia, whatever variation you want to put on the name there. It doesn't take much to see that the deck has been given a massive boost just by the process of elimination. Having your enemies taken care of without you needing to lift a finger seems like it's going to put you in a pretty comfy position. And whilst I'm still not convinced that this is the best deck of the format, at least in terms of its ceiling, it is most certainly going to be the one that mops up the highest amount of representation. Following on from that, we have my absolute favourite deck, Floowandereeze. So the bird deck, much like Despia, has been completely untouched. Most people expected that we might see something of an indirect hit to the deck, something like maybe a barrier statue or shifter, but none of those things happened. So Floowandereeze remains one of the top picks, and by virtue of it not getting hit, it's actually a relative win in terms of things in the format. Following on from that, we have another fun and interactive deck in Eldlich. This is another deck that I had personally anticipated getting some kind of smack on the wrist after some very strong showings at recent high-tier events, but here we are. An untouched Eldlich, the cringe lord, is running around in the format once more. No doubt we will carry on seeing this showing up at the top end of the tables. And we're rolling back the clock a little bit more. It's Swordsoul back on my list of decks that are going to be showing up good in the current format. Swordsoul is another huge winner with the changes in the format. Whilst the deck did see some hits to the cards it previously used, such as the likes of Auroradon and things like that, it did see some boosts in other areas. The likes of Desires coming off the list both improves its consistency and OTK potential. And with most of the top tier combo decks getting absolutely rinsed by their hits, the Ghost second variant of Swordsoul could well be something we see firing up in the coming weeks. Next up, it's Pendulum. This one to me seems pretty obvious. Whilst we didn't see Electromite come off the list, rest in peace, we did see Monkey Board getting dropped in. Which this, alongside with the new waves of supports in recent sets, has seen a resurgence in interest in Pendulum builds. This does mean that we're going to see a lot more experimentation, representation, and therefore more likely we're going to see something convert into something of a success. Next up, it's Trickstar. Trickstar is one of those decks that people absolutely have loved to hate over the years. However, getting Light Stage back to do is the most obvious buff for the deck. It does add some more consistency, it gives the deck a nudge more power, and of course it offers beneficial additional back row removal for the control aspects of the deck. What may end up actually being the bigger boost of all of these things though, is the fact that we have Scapegoat being absolutely free. For those of you who were playing before Trickstar eventually got slapped up,
You'll remember fondly getting goats flipped in your end phase before being converted into a cheeky Boral sword, which then led on to you getting gently dicked down. Well, consider this in a world where far more significant link 4s exist, such as the likes of Access Code Talker, and even better climbing potential options on the way into this card. With all of this in mind, Trickstar could well be an excellent rogue pick for the upcoming format, and I would dismiss it at your peril. And then the final deck on today's list, it's none other than Salamangreat. This deck got potentially 3 buffs depending on your perspective, with direct boosts from the likes of Stalio and Circle going to 3, and the additional nice touch of getting desires up to 2 as well. Salamangreat once again puts itself in among the pretty strong options and in a really solid position for the upcoming format. And I do expect that this, combined with the fact that the format is likely to see less potent starting boards, may actually give Salamangreat an edge in terms of consistency that it has over some of these other decks in the upcoming months. So those are my thoughts on what are the decks that have seen the biggest buffs from this format change. Thank you for making it this far into the video. I do really appreciate it. Hopefully, by virtue of the fact that you've enjoyed it enough to hit subscribe, or at least hate it enough that you couldn't possibly look away. I'd also love to hear down in the comments what your guys' thoughts are. What do you think has got buffed? Is there something that I've missed? Is there something that I've not thought about that maybe makes some of my suggestions wrong? Or are the decks that you think are low-key going to be busted this upcoming format? Thanks again for coming along. I do really appreciate you being here, and I'll see you in the next one.